On March 23, 1775, at the Second Virginia Revolutionary Convention at St. John's Church in Richmond, Virginia, Patrick Henry said a sentence that put him on the maps in the history books.
Is life so dear? Is peace so sweet as to be purchased at the price of chains and slavery? Forbid it, Almighty God! For I know not what course others may take, but as for me, give me liberty! Give me
Smart Sound.
Although this line from this famous speech made him the famous superstar politician that we know and love today, it is just the beginning of an illustrious career that lasted for decades.
Smart Sound.
His career initially started when he became a lawyer. After becoming a lawyer, he was assigned to a case presided upon by his father, the Judge John Henry. Back in 1765, parsons were paid in tobacco and or receipts that were like money paper but represented value in tobacco. The price of tobacco goes up and down often in these historical times, so this is in a high point of the tobacco prices. The Burgesses Court decided that they were going to reduce the price of the parsons' payment. The parsons were very distraught about this, and the king vetoed this law. After this veto happened, some of the parsons decided that they would want to be paid back what they were owed during the time that the law was passed. So Henry was assigned to this court and the trial was known as the Parsons Trial, the Parsons Cause Trial. Eventually, he roused so much support that the juries paid back all of 1 penny, which is technically a victory for the Parsons, but in all moral sense, a victory for Henry.
Smart Sound.
In 1765, Patrick Henry was elected to the House of Burgesses, where he served until 1775. During this time, he was also elected to be a delegate for the Continental Congress and the Virginia Revolution conventions. Right after he was elected in 1765, the Stamp Act passed. And after the Stamp Act passed, many colonists were up in arms, and Patrick Henry was, like many colonists, one of them. In May of 1765, right after he was elected to the Congress, the Stamp Act was passed. And when the Stamp Act was passed, Henry made 7 resolutions. And we know there were 7 is because they were printed in the newspaper a little while later. 5 of them passed, and 1 of them actually was taken back, rescinded the next day. So out of the 4 that were actually passed and adopted, it was really standing up for the rights of Englishmen. At one point, though, he made a revolutionary statement, which he had to apologize for later. The statement he made was, Caesar had his Brutus, Charles I had his Cromwell, and George III. At this point, somebody in the crowd interrupted him, realizing he was talking about some leaders that were actually decapitated or killed, assassinated in different ways. So he continued on, try to fix it up a little. He said, George III, they profit by their example. If this is treason, make the most of it.
Smart Sound.
On June 29, 1776, he was actually elected to be Virginia's first governor. He was actually elected 2 more times after that, and altogether he was elected 5 times. He also was Virginia's 6th governor. During his time as governor, he actually did many things. People asked him to send support and send supplies to actually attack the British and Native Americans in the northwest of the state, which he supported and sent. Also, while he was governor, he also spoke out against slavery. He himself owned slaves, but back as a young man when he was first married, he actually worked along with the slaves. And he actually spoke out against it many times.
Patrick Henry was then invited to be a delegate to the Philadelphia Convention. When asked whether he would attend, he promptly refused, saying, "I smell a rat." Eventually, he did see the financial and taxation problems with the Articles of Confederation, but did not believe that a whole new constitution was needed to fix these issues. Another big concern of his about the Philadelphia Convention was the fact that it was being held in utmost secret. When asked about his problems with the Philadelphia Convention, he said, "Congress may carry on the most wicked and pernicious of schemes under the dark veil of secrecy. The liberties of people never were, nor ever will be, secure when the transactions of their rulers may be concealed from them." Patrick Henry was an avid supporter of states' rights, and also may be one of the absolute primary reasons that the Bill of Rights was eventually included in the Constitution. Eventually, he did end up supporting the Constitution, saying, "The Constitution is not an instrument for the government to restrain the people, it is an instrument for the people to restrain the government, lest it come to dominate our lives and interests."
Smart Sound.
In 1798, he was actually elected to be a presidential elector for the presidential election. Also during that time, he actually worked alongside with making districts. He is actually accused of being one of the first to do gerrymandering with the lines. The counties he represented in 1798 were Bedford, Campbell, Charlotte, Franklin, Halifax, Henry, Pittsylvania, and Prince Edward counties. Eventually, George Washington was elected. He virtually had no competition.
Smart Sound.
During Washington's second term as president, he actually offered Patrick Henry multiple jobs that Patrick Henry turned down, including Secretary of State, Ambassador to France, and Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. He turned them down because of his health.
Smart Sound.
In 1778, Patrick Henry involved himself with the Federalist Party, endorsing a candidate for Congress named John Marshall. A rumor had been spreading around, most likely started by the Republican opposition, saying that Patrick Henry supported John Marshall's chief opposition. In a letter, he promptly stated that this was far from true, saying, "Can it be thought that with these sentiments I should utter anything tending to prejudice General Marshall's election? Very far from it indeed. His temper and disposition were always pleasant, his talents and integrity unquestioned."
During John Adams' presidency, the Alien Sedition Act came to be about, and many people were up in arms about this, including two prominent states, Kentucky and Virginia. They created the Kentucky-Virginia Resolution. And for a states' rights man, as Patrick Henry was, it's kind of a little odd that he opposed it.
Smart Sound.
Near the end of his life and career, George Washington urged Henry to run for the House of Delegates in Virginia. In a letter to Henry, Washington wrote, "I express a hope and earnest wish that you would come forward at the ensuing election, if not for Congress, which you may think would take you too long from home, as a candidate for representative in the General Assembly of this Commonwealth." This letter did persuade him to run, in fact, and he won the election, but 3 months before taking office, he died. Patrick Henry, a man that would most likely be one of the greatest statesmen ever to live, dedicated his life to the spread of liberty and was an outspoken anti-federalist. Though once federalism was instituted as law of the land in the Constitution, he then proceeded to defend this law and even ran as a prominent Federalist at the end of his life.